Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Patricia DuChene on the line, and she's Vice President of Sales over at Postal.io. Patricia, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Very much appreciated.
All right, Patricia, so I am excited to get into today's topic. So a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives out there listening to this, and our topic today, how to build and scale a repeatable B2B sales process, emphasis on repeatable. I know a lot of people are interested in that, so I'm excited to get into that with you because that's what you're doing. But before we get into that, let's go a little bit further for the listeners that haven't heard of Postal.io yet. Let's go a little bit further into the company. So tell us a little bit more about what you do, please.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So Postal.io, we are a customer and prospect engagement platform that utilizes offline and direct mail gifting. So very much like so many pieces of technology out there today, SalesLoft, Inside Sales, Outreach have automated so much of the administrative, mundane, repeatable digital engagement that salespeople have with their prospects and customers. We've created a technology that integrates and automates the offline engagement. B2C for decades has nailed offline. When you have a birthday, Anthropology knows, and they send you a gift card with 10% off. How do they, and it looks good, it feels personalized, but B2B, we have never been able to figure it out. If we do it, it's ad hoc, it's ordering cupcakes, getting them delivered, maybe the box you sent through your personal assistant gets lost in the mail to the executive you're trying to sell to, and so on. And so we basically said enough is enough, and why can't this be automated with technology today? So we're a platform that is very much technology focused. We are a SaaS business, which some people will kind of go, wait, but you just said offline. You just said direct mail and gifting. But we are. We're a technology company, and we integrate with hundreds of vendors around the United States that allow us to fulfill these sort of engagements within moments. So we have SLAs with all of our vendors so that we can execute in a very quick period of time. But what that does, and especially right now, I don't know if anyone's feeling a little Zoom fatigue in the coronavirus era, but I know a lot of events are obviously Zoom-based. We're just overloaded with digital. Emails are prolific, and they're not going to go anywhere, but that makes the sales rep's job really hard. How to get your prospect's attention, or how to wave your hands and tell your customer, hey, I'm here, I'd love to engage with you, I want to make sure you're happy. And so what we've done is we've just added another element to the toolbox that sales reps can now use to make themselves, different, and to make themselves known so that they can begin, a real conversation with that prospect or that customer.
That's awesome. And I think it's a great transition. So let's talk a little bit more about today's topic. So building and scaling a repeatable B2B sales process. I mean, what does that look like? Because a lot of people look at that as, that's the holy grail of sales, is building the, scalable and repeatable and B2B. I mean, those aren't 3 easy things that there are to accomplish. So where do you want to start with this one?
Well, I think it's important to probably start what it's not. Many people that I speak with who are entrepreneurs, or they're joining a startup, for example, with a new sales team, the first thing that they think of is they're like, I have to build a framework. And they start with what they think the sales process should be. And I have to stop you there because that is the wrong way to go about this. A sales process should not be about you or your product. It should be about your customers. It should be how your customers ideally want to purchase your technology or your widget or what have you. And that is where I think many companies fail, is they try to, they create a box and they try to put a bunch of circles right into it. And that's just not, quite frankly, how it works. So the first thing that I would say, if you have no customers, is identify who your target market is and start to map out those personas, whatever those ideal customer profiles really are, and figure out how it is they buy technology. It's really, people often use LinkedIn as a way to engage with prospects. I use LinkedIn as a way to engage with people asking for advice. When we were first building the sales process here at Postal, we used cold outreach to just ask people for their time. Can I just get 10 minutes on the calendar? I'm not going to sell you anything. I want to learn about your job. I want to learn about your world. And we asked people, how do you typically buy that technology? So if we were to, create something like this, how would you want to evaluate it? What would be required? And it was actually through that sort of through that experience of talking to these future customers that we were able to come up with our first, a V1 framework. And sales processes, for anyone who's on the sales team, we know that it's never done. Sales process is always a living organism. If you do have customers, you've already got your group of people that you can go to. I create a customer advisory board, and I'd ask them. I'd be like, what do you wish we did better in that sales process? And I would start to look at your first few deals, especially those that are of a size that you're happy with. Not all companies start selling right away at the size that they want to. Maybe they're selling to SMB and they want to move up to enterprise. But figure out what are the similarities in these deals, and do they happen at a similar time frame in those deals? Do they happen around day 10 or day 30? And as you start to map that, you realize you'll end up with an outline. And that outline is the very beginning of your sales process. So then you're going to want to take that outline and identify the key stages in that buyer journey. So if we had to bucket it into, say, 4, 5, or 6 categories, what would you call them? And typically they're going to be something around education and awareness. You're going to have something around a demo or a validation that the product meets the needs. Then you're going to have some type of administrative approval process. This could also be, you could also have another one right in the middle there, kind of like a decision maker or budgetary approval. And then ultimately you're going to look for a close. And so figure out what those key stages are for your technology. And depending on the piece of technology, obviously it might vary how much time you ultimately need between stages. And you want to come up with, at each stage, a gate. And what I mean by a gate, and a gate is really important to a sales process, because a gate is something that must happen between the sales rep and the customer before they proceed to the next step. Again, we're creating this framework with the customer in mind, which is really important. So we're not trying to force them down a process that we've decided is the right way to buy our technology. We've created this with our customer. And the reason this gate's important is that from a company's perspective, and this is where we get to a little bit of repeatable here, we know then if we look at our pipeline, exactly where all of our deals are. It's not kind of subjective depending on the sales rep. And I'm sure everybody's had experience where they look at a pipeline and they're like, oh, no, like Susan's very conservative. I know she has that deal at 30%, but really for Susan, that means she's like 70% of the way done. Oh God, then there's John. John always says every deal is going to close, but we all know that's not the case. It removes that. And all of a sudden you have a repeatable, scalable business where you can say, look, if I have a deal at this stage, I know they have accomplished A, B, C, and D, because they can't be at that stage until they've achieved those gates. And I think that is something that many sales processes lack, which is where you get into this lack of predictability in your forecasting of your deal cycle. So again, one of the things that I really can't hammer enough is like when you're building this process, you've got to talk to your early customers. You got to keep them really close to you. Something else that I will outline is that this is not something you can do on like an executive offsite. You can't just kind of get together in a room and slap it together in a short period of time. It's an iterative process. And one of the things that I personally have fallen victim to is that need to be like 100% confident it's the right process, because you're never going to get that. And so I guess I would get used to that discomfort and say, if you can get 75% of the way there or 70% of the way there in your confidence, run with it. That feels good, I would go for it. Because I don't think many companies, you're going to ever really feel 100% confident that you've built the perfect process. But 70% is a bad place to be. And then the last thing I'll say as you kind of think about this framework is that the people you hire also impact it. And if you're in a position in a small company or entrepreneur where you have a small team, the people you hire are massive investments. And it's really easy to think about hiring in the sense of like, I want to go find the biggest, the baddest sales people out there. And I would just ask you to pause and think if that's really the right move today. And the reason that I say that is that the biggest and the baddest sales reps aren't always the best team players. And I always say sales reps typically fall in one or two personalities. And yes, I know this is like massively oversimplifying this. But they can be missionaries or mercenaries for the most part. And when you're a small team trying to figure out your sales process, you're going to want to find missionaries. Because missionaries believe in your mission, they're invested in building with your team, and they're comfortable with change. Mercenaries are great sales reps, but they want a big paycheck consistently, and that's not something you can always afford as an entrepreneur.
Well, that's awesome, and that's a great framework, Patricia, that you've given. You really taught a master class in 10 minutes, so that's awesome. I encourage everybody to listen to this one again and take some notes. So, Patricia, final question, two-part question. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Postal.io, and they want to figure out if this is the right type of fit for their company, question number one, what's the right type of company, whether it's niche, size of company, industry, or otherwise, that typically makes a company a good fit to work with Postal.io? And number two, what's the best way for them to follow up and to connect with you and your team?
Yeah, good question. So being a SaaS-based business, we've created 4 different plans of our platform with varying functionality, specifically meant to meet the needs of both like the single entrepreneur individual as well as the Fortune 500. So really any B2B company, we'd love to work with you. We work with a wide variety, everything from technology companies all the way to, individual owners of insurance agencies. So I would say kind of anyone falls in our ballgame. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about direct mail and gifting and how that can help you differentiate and stand out amongst a sea of sales, emails, and phone calls, we'd be happy to talk to you. If you want to hear more or you want to read more on your own, I do recommend you go to our website, Postal.io. We also have plenty of videos, which you can find on YouTube. You can find on G2, which is a review website. We've got plenty of content up there. And, of course, we've got all the usual social channels with LinkedIn and Instagram and all that jam.
Fantastic. Well, Patricia, it's been awesome having you on the show today. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing more about what you're doing over at Postal.io and also, of course, building scalable and repeatable B2B sales processes. So awesome stuff you gave today. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. I mean, love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Patricia, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.